Lance? You ready? Okay. Good evening. I would like to call to order the Planning and Zoning Board meeting for the Village of Tequesta. Today is December 16th and the time is 5:30. And Lance, could you do the roll, please?
Janet Strand, Steve Egan, Elizabeth Shower,
Here?
Leslie Dasher,
Here.
James Hackett,
Here.
Teresa Maggio, Sherry Ambrose.
Here.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair, before we take any action, I just want to note for the record that Acting Chair Janet Strand and Vice Chair Steve Egan are both absent. With that said, we are going to appoint our Senior Planning and Zoning Board member, Liz Shower, to preside over this meeting as Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. May I have an approval of the agenda, please?
A motion to approve?
May I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion is approved. Okay, may I have a motion to approve the minutes of the previous minutes for the planning and zoning which was held on November 18th, 2021?
I make a motion to approve last month's minutes.
May I have a second?
Second.
A second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion's passed. Agenda items. The first agenda item is variance 04-21. Application from Carol and Joseph Frezza for a variance to allow the installation of a privacy fence and a pedestrian gate forward of the building front, where Section 78-284 of the Village Code prohibits fences from being located forward of the adjacent or nearest portion of the building front. The address of the property is 366 Riverside Drive, Tequesta, Florida, 33469. Nilsa, please.
Thank you. And before we get started, this is a quasi-judicial proceeding, consideration of this application. So if you are testifying today, either as an applicant or on behalf of the applicant, will you please stand and raise your right hand to be sworn in?
All of together? Because, no.
Or just for
Just
variance
for
4-21, sorry. Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you give here today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. I do.
Thank you. And now I turn to Planning and Zoning Board members. If any of you have had any ex parte discussions regarding this application or conducted any site visits to the subject property, can you disclose them at this time?
I spoke to Neil, sir, earlier this afternoon in regard to this variance.
Thank you. And before we proceed,
We didn't go through, I have, no, I haven't. I'm just putting this
Today.
out there. Today? Well, it could be any day, right?
it can be any day.
Right.
It's not.
After the previous meeting that they were at, we did bump into each other. We had a brief conversation. While we did not talk about the application, she knew I could not speak about it. I'm just putting that out there. My understanding also is they had a consultant help them that I do work for, but I have not had conversations about this application. Again, just putting it out there, let everyone know.
Thank you. And before we proceed further, just to recap variance procedures, these variance applications are to be considered in a quasi-judicial capacity for you as Planning and Zoning Board members. This means you are to consider all the evidence presented before you today and make a decision based on that evidence. The evidence presented before you today takes the form of the application, supporting documentation, the village's staff report, the applicant's justification statement, which contains the variance criteria, as well as any verbal testimony you hear today. As I stated before, your role as Planning and Zoning Board members in a quasi-judicial capacity is to consider the evidence and make a determination as to whether or not the applicant has satisfied each of the 6 village variance criteria. The variance criteria are found in the applicant's justification statement. They are also found in Section 78-65 Village Code. For the sake of review, I'm going to go over them now. Essentially, the decision to grant or deny a variance is contingent upon A or one special conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land structure or building involved and which are not applicable to other land structures or buildings in the same zoning district. B or two, the special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant. C or three, granting the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by this chapter to other lands, buildings, or structures in the same zoning district. D or four, literal interpretation of the provisions of this chapter would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same zoning district under the terms of this chapter and would work unnecessary and undue hardship on the applicant. E or five, the variance granted is the minimum variance that will make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. F or six, the grant of the variance will be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of this chapter, and such variance will not be injurious to the area involved or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare. So these are the 6 variance criteria. Your role as Planning and Zoning Board members is to consider the evidence and make a determination as to whether or not the applicant has met their burden in improving each of the 6 variance criteria. Your thought process should not be based on whether the decision is in the best interest of the village. It is whether the applicant has met their burden by competent and substantial evidence approving each of the 6 variance criteria. With that said, when it is time to make a motion, if the motion is to approve the variance and the application, it is presumed that the maker of the motion believes that all 6 of the variance criteria have been met. If the motion is to deny the variance, the maker of the motion must specify which of the 6 variance criteria they believe that the applicant did not meet by way of competent substantial evidence. In addition, conditions may be, the Planning and Zoning Board may approve a variance application with conditions, but such conditions must be reasonably related and proportionate in scope to the request being made. With that, we can proceed. Thank you.
Nilsa, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just to recap, I would like to read this from the staff report, page 2. The Planning and Zoning Board heard the subject application on October 21st, 2021. The applicants, Mr. and Mrs. Frezza, attended the meeting, and after further discussion, the application was postponed to December 16, 2021 Planning and Zoning Board meeting. So just that's a background of this subject application. Okay. Madam Chair?
Thank you. Carol, would you like?
Sure. Okay. As I was introduced, I'm Carol Frezza, and I live at 366 West Riverside Drive in Tequesta. And I am here tonight requesting your support for my variance application to locate a fence and pedestrian gate within my front yard. As you recall, I was here on October 21st and was not very successful, but at that time I requested from the board if they could give me a recommendation of someone I could speak to revise this application. Fortunately, one of the people that were recommended was Jennifer Morton's office, who I'm friendly with, and she wanted to be here tonight. She could not be here tonight, so I'm going to read what we put together. All right, first of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to revise my application to address the uniqueness of my property and to provide a justification that addresses the 6 criteria as required by the Village of Tequesta. In your packet, you have my revised justification. As you have all had the opportunity to review my application prior to the meeting, I will just summarize my request and then answer questions. My home was built in 1978, and my husband and I have lived in the home since 1998. The lot configuration is long and narrow, almost 400 feet deep and 95 feet wide. We continue to live and enjoy the original home and have not torn down or significantly expanded the structure. The home was sited close to the water for water views, and ease of access to the dock. Therefore, most of the open space and family recreational area is located within the front of the home. These are unique conditions particular to my property and are special circumstances that are not the results of actions that we took. As noted on the plans and justification statement, the house is set back over 200 feet from Riverside Drive. Today, newer homes are designed to fit the lot and take up more of the lot area. We have no desire to tear down or rebuild. We enjoy the open area and utilize this area for outdoor activities. By granting this variance, we will not be receiving any special privilege that is denied by the code. The variance request is the minimum necessary to make use of the land and secure the property. The fence has been located to be harmonious with the streetscape and existing vegetation. I respectfully request your support and will try to answer any questions.
Thank you. Sherry, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I do not. I was here last meeting, and I think that you've addressed the 6 questions.
Okay. Ms. James?
No, I don't.
Okay, Teresa? Not Teresa. Leslie?
No, I don't.
Okay. Okay, with that, then, are there any comments from the public? Are there any comments online? Are there any comment cards filled out?
For this agenda item.
Okay. With that,
I'll give you a motion to approve
okay,
application.
Mr. Hackett?
Motion to approve agenda item number 1, variance 0421, application from Carol and Joseph Frezza for variance to allow the installation of privacy fence and a pedestrian gate forward of the building front, where section 78, 284 of the Village Code prohibits fences from being located forward of the adjacent or nearest portion of the building front. That's my motion.
Member Hackett made a motion. We either
Second.
need a second or it dies.
I'll second.
Okay.
Chair Ambrose, thank you.
Yes. I don't have to say the whole thing again, do I?
Okay, Lance, could I have a roll call, please?
James Hackett,
Yes.
Elizabeth Shower,
Yes?
Leslie Dasher,
No,
and Sherry Ambrose.
Yes.
So we have 3-1 approval.
Motion is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the second item on the agenda, this is variance evening, is variance 05-21, application from David Noble and Andrea Conte for a variance to install an accessory structure, screen enclosure with a reduced rear setback onto an existing single-family structure in the R-1A zoning district, relief from section 78-143 to allow a rear setback of a half a foot, where the code requires a minimum of 10 feet for accessory structures. The address of the property is 12 Bunker Place, Tequesta, Florida, 33469. Nielsen? Oh, Matt, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this variance application is, again, a quasi-judicial proceeding. So if anybody today is presenting or testifying on behalf of the applicant, please rise and raise your right hand to be sworn in. Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you give here today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And now I turn to Planning and Zoning Board members. If any of you have had any ex parte discussions regarding this variance application or conducted any site visits to the subject property, can you please disclose those at this time?
I've had none.
None.
Seeing none, and just to briefly review, I'm not going to go over the entire set of variance criteria, but the same 6 variance criteria apply, and the applicant has the burden of proving that they meet each of the 6 criteria by competent substantial evidence. Thank you.
Nielsen?
Madam Chair, board members, just to recall, after our last meeting, staff was advised by this board to provide applicants with, names of land use planners. So we did provide 2 names to all the applicant. So they did contracted with a land use planner. And then also to put it into context, so the applicant is requesting a variance for this screen enclosure. This subject home is located in the R1A district. And then the code says that accessory structures need to be located, it needs to have 10 feet setback from the property line. This case, the applicant is proposing to have 0.5 feet, not even 1 feet from the property line. So the applicant has a presentation, I believe.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, members of the board, good evening. Brian Checkis, I Plan and Design. I'm here on behalf of my clients, Mr. David Noble and Miss Andrea Conte. We're here seeking rear setback variance relief of approximately ½ a foot in the rear yard of their existing single-family home for a screened pool enclosure. I want to give you a brief history, entitlement history of this property and the village, because it goes to the burden that is facing my applicant, the applicant today. In 1956, the plat of Tequesta was approved, and that plat outlined the development standards for residential properties throughout the village, including my client's property, lot 303, and Tequesta Country Club was then developed over the early 60s and beyond. That single-family dwelling was constructed in 1961 per the Palm Beach County property appraiser records, and the site improvements that went along with that property, the pool deck, they all complied with the zoning regulations of that time. So from the time it was developed, it followed the plat of Tequesta requirements. They're published on the plat. That's how this property, that's how all the properties in the village were developed up until 1977. In 1977, the village of Tequesta updated their zoning code, and all of the above site standards, improvements that are existed since 1961, since 1968, all fell out of compliance. The previous property owner, fast forward, previous property owner to my clients, removed that existing pool enclosure sometime in the mid to early 2000s due to the hurricanes. It was probably the hurricanes that came through between 2005 and 2007, because all the evidence that we provided you shows the screen enclosure existed prior to the 1977 code change and for decades after the 1977 code change. But in the mid-2000s, it was off the property. So they didn't replace that original screen enclosure. The replacement enclosure that's being requested tonight is the same size, the same location, same scale, and in conformance with the original approval regulations that were outlined on the plat of Tequesta. Give you a little bit of location and context. The subject property is at the east end of Bunker Place. It has a small divot out of the northeast corner as due to the cul-de-sac. That's important because I highlight our property, which has the nonconformities, but I'm highlighting other properties on the cul-de-sac within the Tequesta Country Club that also have nonconformities. Building setbacks, pool enclosure setbacks. It's a lot of nonconformities throughout the community. Things that don't mean anything to anyone because they have a golf course adjacent to them and off-site impacts are negligible. Zooming in on the site itself, this lot after 1977 became non-conforming. It doesn't meet the minimum lot requirements standards, and that divot from Bunker Place, the cul-de-sac, caused the original development and placement of that property to hinder the backyard. That house, the structure that was built, complied to the plat of Tequesta, but it was pushed back in order to do that. And what that did was effectively reduce the size of the developable area of the backyard. And all of this is going to trickle forward to what we're going to talk about in the next few slides. This is a survey that shows the property. It's probably a couple of decades old. It's probably not the original survey. They didn't have CAD in 1961, but it's definitely an old survey. And what's critical about looking at this survey is that it showed a screened patio. It would basically follow the line of the concrete in the backyard, shows the pool very close to that southern property boundary. Again, in compliance with how it was built and designed in 1961 to the 1956 plat. Fast forward to 2021, and this is critical to our application this evening, the exact same survey, the exact same site elements. Nothing's changed. The backyard hasn't been impacted with redevelopment. The pool was never moved. The original deck was never moved. Everything's frozen in time. And that's critical because the request we're asking for is to put back the pool structure to the same development standards that the property possesses today. We showed you just a brief outline in red where the structure would go back. It's on top of the existing decking. There was a fence, safety fence around the pool. It's since been removed, but the proposed pool enclosure would go in the exact same location. We're not asking for 1 inch further or more land. We're only asking to put back what was originally approved over 60 years ago. Gave you in your packets what this enclosure would look like, mansard style. It's standard, it's ubiquitous throughout Florida. This is what a standard enclosure would look like. This is what ours would probably look like. And some very important pictures that show the original screen enclosure. Portion of it's still attached to the house. That exists today. So it shows that the structure was there. It was in line with what we're saying in terms of where it was located. The picture on the left shows how it mounted to the wall. Again, the two critical parts of this picture are the fences that are in the pictures that show that the screen enclosure will go right back in the same location where the fences are located today. This is a picture of the existing foundations. The original foundations that were poured for the screen enclosure will be right on top of those footings, and the enclosure will not go past where you see the fence today, essentially. This last set of pictures shows the original pool location, the original deck, and the limits of the screen enclosure. The picture on the left is not on our property. I'm standing on Country Club Golf Course property looking back at our property. Our property ends about a foot into the grass beyond the that decorative security fence. I want to go through the variance criteria with you very quickly. We believe we meet all of the criteria in terms of allowing you all to grant us a variance. The first one, special conditions and circumstances exist peculiar to the land, structure, or building, not applicable to other lands in our structures and buildings in the same zoning district. Absolutely. The principal building was constructed in compliance with that previous village code, with the plat of Tequesta. That was the governing document at the time. In 1977, the LDRs were modified, including setback requirements. That created the legal nonconformity that exists today. No one was responsible other than the town changing the code and taking older historic properties and putting them out of conformance. The original principal building and site improvements have not been changed. They've frozen in time for 60 years, and we're asking to put a structure back in place, a required structure for this particular applicant that would essentially meet the exact same standards and not be excessive to what was originally approved on that site. And the layout and programming of the site predates the 1977 Village Code. That in itself has an inherent hardship due to the original configuration of the lot, due to the cul-de-sac, due to pushing that house back and off the 25-foot front yard line and pushing it back and making the backyards tighter. That's why the original screen enclosure, which met the code, isn't set back 10 feet. No one contemplated 10 feet in 1961. It wasn't thought of, and it wasn't contemplated. Will the variance, is it caused by the actions of the applicant? It is not. This lot was developed 16 years prior to the 1977 LDR code change by the village. The rear setback encroachment predates this owner's interest in the property. The historic design, layout, development of the residence itself, as well as the pool deck, the screen patio, have fallen out of compliance since 1977. Reinstating the original design is the only option they have to be able to put a screen enclosure in their backyard, because if you impose the 10-foot setback, they can't build the screen enclosure. It would be inside the pool. Will granting the variance confer upon the applicant special privileges denied by this chapter to other lands, buildings, or structures in the same zoning district? The enforcement of the 10-foot required setback would not allow for the development of the screen enclosure. The backyard's too tight, the pool's never been changed, the deck has never been changed, it's not going to be changed, so the screen enclosure has to fit in the context with which that property was developed, and that predates the 1977 code. Enforcing the 10-foot required setback is not possible, and following the original approved design program would have allowed for that original setback. Prior to 1977, all the years that it existed in compliance, and all the years that it existed after 1977 in compliance for decades. Literal interpretation would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same zoning district under the terms of this chapter, and would work unnecessary and undue hardship on the applicant. Yes, the existing site programming cannot be modified to satisfy the reestablishment of a consistent screened enclosure. That's like burning the house down to light the fireplace. It doesn't make any sense to go backwards. Historic conditions, the non-conforming lot, the site programming, and the village-initiated code changes contributed to the current conditions that require relief by way of a variance, which is what the code allows. The request does not increase the existing nonconformity. We're going to match the original setback as we've discussed, and following the original design program would have allowed for that original setback. Is it in harmony with the, the variance granted is the minimum variance that will make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure? Yes, the site was originally designed and programmed with a reduced setback pre-1977. Maintaining that setback, not asking for more, will not increase the nonconformity. It holds the line on it, and it's similar to other properties as they adhere to the code that they're constructed under. Anything post-1977, anything built today, for example. The last part of it is, the variance is the only and it's the most appropriate response to the 1977 code update that created the nonconformity. It's the only vehicle we have, or the only tool we have to be able to construct a screen enclosure that would satisfy the needs of this applicant who recently purchased the home and be able to reasonably use their backyard. In this instance, and in this specific instance, it's due to health considerations, and a screen enclosure is vital for the use of their property. It's that simple. The grant of the variance will be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of this chapter, and such variance will not be injurious to the area involved. There's no discernible impact on the neighboring property to the south. The Tequesta Country Club, in your packets, provided a letter of support. They have no issues with this variance and with the introduction of the screen enclosure and asking for the variance. The neighboring properties to the east and west, they have similar enclosures, so there's no inconsistency with what exists in the world and with our neighboring properties. Unless Lance tells me differently, I don't think anyone's commented on this application. And there's no precedent being set by this request before you this evening. This variance is specific to this lot and the conditions that we have arrived at today for this property. No other property, unless they have the exact same conditions, can come up and ask for the same thing and point to us as a precedent to them. Everyone has to be taken on its own merit. And with that, we are seeking your recommendation of approval of the variance request before you, and we're here to answer any questions that you may have.
What's his name? I forgot his name.
Brian.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
Does staff have an opinion on this?
I just want to read that this application, we follow the village code. So a notice of hearing was advertised in the Palm Beach Post on December 6th, And then the legal notice was mailed to property owners within 300-foot radius of the property, and we have not had communication from any of the neighbors in favor or against. The only, obviously, the only letter that we have is the Cuesta Country Club, which is in favor.
Thank you.
Sherry, any questions?
No, I believe they met the 6 criteria.
Okay. Jim? Leslie?
I just have one about maintenance. It's right on the property line. How do you maintain the screen without trespassing on?
This is not the application that we are looking at now.
Oh, yes, I know. But
So, yeah,
but it's right on the property
Yes.
line.
it's actually set back 1 foot. We're asking for the half-foot variance, not a 1-foot variance, in case from 1961 to the 2021 standards for construction, if they need a little more room for foundation work or any kind of, building code regulations change every single year, and they get more and more stringent. So we were making sure we had an extra half a foot beyond it. The structure is actually a foot off the property line, so they can stand on their property. There'll be no fence there, it's just a screen enclosure. They can stand right on the edge of their property and maintain that. And luckily, this portion of the golf course is, it's not like, it's, the fairway isn't like right next to it.
Oh, now
It's
that I don't
forested,
hear. I mean,
so
I don't
it has
hear
no
about the
impact.
Country club, right. I
Right.
just was concerned as how do you
Yeah.
maintain the screen in this much room?
They will have to just work on the property line and do their best to not encroach onto the golf course. Go ahead, yeah, absolutely, please.
Please state your name, come to the podium, state your name, your address, and you can address Leslie, please.
Hi, yes, hi, my name is ANDREA CONTE. We purchased the property, my husband, David Noble, and I. Leslie, thank you for your question. It was confusing to me, and I just want to make sure I'm understanding your question. And I can't thank you all enough for hearing our case, and for Brian for doing such a wonderful job with his presentation to meet all the criteria. You asked about how we would maintain the screen enclosure. If you look at the photos of the actual yard, when we purchased the property back in May, the entire backyard outside of the pre-existing foundation for the pool, where that foundation is to support a screen or a fence, beyond that point, up until the hedge of the country club golf course, has been maintained by the owners of this particular property. Landscape Services, we've been paying for it the entire time since we purchased the property back in May. So I wasn't clear when you asked the question, how are you going to maintain it by standing on this much? If you look at the photographs, you see
I
the
see that,
the
but I mean,
big
it's not
yard.
your property, correct?
Right,
Okay, so,
right. So,
okay,
anyway, thank you.
okay.
Is that your only question?
Yes, that's it.
Okay. I have none. I do have to say, it's a big difference having somebody in the business doing a presentation for a variance. And I mean, how many, when I did this, I looked at my own screen enclosure and I probably have the same problem, so,
I'll leave you
gonna
my
be-
card.
no, thank you. I don't want to get into trouble. So, with that, may I have a motion?
Sorry, Madam Chair, we can open it up for...
I'm sorry. I need public comment, sorry. Is there any public comment? Any online comment? And no comment cards?
After this agenda item.
Okay, then with that, no other questions for the applicant? Okay, may I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve variance 05-21.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
I'll do a roll call.
Thank you.
James Hackett,
Yes.
Elizabeth Shower,
Yes?
Leslie Dasher,
Yes.
Sherry Ambrose.
Yes.
4-0 approval.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Too many variances, I'm getting confused here.
Me
Okay.
too.
Okay. Is the applicant here?
I think so.
Okay. You're here? Okay, all right. I'm going, variance 06-21, application from Sean and Stephanie Spiegelman for a variance to install an accessory structure, a screen enclosure, with a reduced rear setback onto an existing single-family structure in the R-1A zoning district. Relief from section 78-143 to allow a rear setback of 6 feet where the code requires a minimum of 10 feet for accessory structures. The address of the property is 318 Fairway North, Tequesta, Florida, 33469. Matt, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this variance application is a quasi-judicial proceeding, so if you're testifying today on behalf of applicant or on behalf of the village, will you please stand and raise your right hand to be sworn in? Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you give here today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And now I turn to Planning and Zoning Board members. If any of you have had any ex parte discussions regarding this application with either village staff or the applicant, or have conducted any site visits to the subject property, can you please disclose those at this time?
No.
None.
None.
And seeing none, and just to reiterate, as I stated before the first application, for a variance, the applicant has the burden to prove each of the 6 variance criteria by competent substantial evidence. And with that, I yield to the chair.
Okay. Nielsen, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just would like to read into the records the background that is on page 2 of this of the staff report. In May 2021, the applicant received a building permit to construct a swimming pool. The swimming pool was built and the permit was finalized in September 2021. In October 2021, the applicant submitted a building permit to install a screen enclosure around the swimming pool. The swimming pool was built with a correct setback. It has a 9 feet. The village code for this swimming pool without a screen enclosure requires only a 7 feet setback. So currently there is a deck surrounding the swimming pool. There is a setback of 6 feet from the deck to the rear of the property line as shown on the below graphic. So the staff report includes a graphic showing what the applicant submitted. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I didn't catch your name, I'm sorry.
Sure. My name is Sean Spiegelman. I'm the
Okay.
property owner of 318 Fairway North.
Okay, it's your time, you have the floor to address the
Right.
board.
I have little big shoes to follow, huh?
Sorry.
It's no problem. I'll do the best that I can, all right? So the condition that we have at 318 Fairway North is like the preceding application before me, the home was built during a different era. And this specific home is located further back on the existing land, causing a hardship where the rear of our property, we have a reduced amount of property in the rear. So while we were able to meet the code in terms of the swimming pool, without the variance that we're requesting, we would not be able to install the screen enclosure which we've submitted for permit. The other properties that are located on Fairway North, They don't have, well, they're not set as far back. So this property, when it was constructed originally, which is causing the hardship, there's a rear room, and that rear room has pushed the usable portion of land to where if we were going to put, like the preceding application, if we were going to install a screen enclosure, it would be on top of the pool. So we've done everything we can to meet the code with respect to the pool, but with respect to the screen enclosure, without the variance, we cannot meet the code. So speaking to the individual conditions according to the application, under the criteria number 1, it says special conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land, structure, or building involved and which are not applicable to other lands, structures, or buildings. As I was mentioning, because the home was built further back on the existing piece of land, there was nothing that we as the applicant could do other than to conform to what we had to work with. So while we met the pool requirement, without the variance of approximately 4 feet, we would not be able to meet the screen enclosure setback for the accessory structure. So we believe that because the existing structure as it sits on the existing land, the way it's built, it has created a hardship for us as the applicant. Under number 2, the special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant. As I was mentioning, the home was built prior to us buying the property. I believe it was built also, like the previous applicant had stated, that it was done during a time where the code didn't have these types of setbacks, and that had changed over time. Number 3, granting the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by this chapter to other lands. We believe granting the requested variance of approximately 4 feet in the rear will not confer upon this applicant any special privilege that's not denied by the chapter to other lands, buildings, or structured in this R1A zoning district. Number 4, the literal interpretation of the provisions of this chapter would deprive the applicant of the rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same zoning district under the terms of this chapter and would work unnecessarily and undue hardship on the applicant. We believe that the literal interpretation of Code Section 78-143 in the R1A district causes an undue hardship to us as the applicant. The existing building is, as I was mentioning, it's set far back to the rear of the land, which has caused a hardship and deprives us as the applicant the rights commonly enjoyed by other properties. Number 5, under the criteria, the variance granted is a minimum variance that will make it possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. We believe granting the minimum variance of approximately 4 feet to the rear of our property will make it possible for us to be able to install the screen enclosure over the existing pool and meet the current code under Section 78-143 in the R1A district. And number 6, under the justification for the variance, is the granting of the variance will be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of this chapter, and such variance will not be injurious to the area involved or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare. Granting the minimum variance of approximately 4 feet to the rear of our property will be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of this chapter, and the variance will not be injurious to the area involved or otherwise detrimental to any public welfare. The variance will make possible for us, the applicant, to install the screen enclosure that we are requesting and meet the current code under Section 78-143 in the R1A district. We believe that we've met the 6 criteria for the approval by this governing body for this variance, due to the fact that the home is located on the existing piece of property further back, which has caused the hardship for us as the applicant to install the screen enclosure. The application had pictures. I don't know how, if there was questions, how that works, but the application has pictures. If you have questions that I would be able to address.
Okay. Sherry, do you have any questions?
I think I have a couple questions, but Nilsa, were you trying to say something? No?
Yes, I just wanted to point out that the applicant submitted this drawing that shows specifically that the pool was built at 5 feet of the existing residence, and the pool has 9 feet, the width of the pool is 9 feet. So,
Can I make any comment, or do I have to wait? Yeah?
You have the floor.
Normal, not that there's a normal pool, but the pool is very narrow. For us to be able to do the installation of the pool and meet the code that you're mentioning, we had to be 5 feet off of the existing patio doors. So once we factored in all of those setbacks that are required by code, we ended up with a very narrow in terms of the width of the pool.
So I guess
Sherry?
my two questions. Is there a way to build a screen enclosure that does not go over the top of the pool that meets the code as written? And my second question is, when you built the pool, were you aware you would need a variance for the screen?
So the first question was, is there any way to build the screen enclosure the way that it sits? There wouldn't be. That if we conform to the 10-foot setback, it would be, the screen enclosure would be on top of the water.
It would be on water, okay.
Yeah, so that'd be the first thing. The second question, were we aware when we were having a conversation about the setback with our screen enclosure company that we've already hired? We've already hired a screen enclosure company. We've already paid the deposit. That's why we have a drawing that's in there. This was the first time that they've seen Coastal, which has been in business for a very long time, very reputable screen manufacturing company. This is the first time they've seen a setback like that. And like the previous applicant was speaking to, this level of setback, you know, it's not the same if you go to Palm Beach County, if you go to different counties, Broward County, Dade County, they're different everywhere you go. So they had not seen it, and so I was relying upon other professionals in the industry that would have seen it. I guess if we would have known that there was a 10-foot setback, I would be sitting here still requesting the variance for the 10-foot setback and kind of having to deal with what that would be with the pool. The pool would be even, it would be like a couple bathtubs width, you know, so, you know, trying to still give the family something to enjoy in the backyard, which we have, but, you know, without that ability to meet the code, we can't kind of cover the pool.
Jim?
First of all, shame on your contractor. I mean, if you're reputable and he's done enough work in here, he should have known to check setbacks prior to submitting any application. And being in this business, shame on your screen enclosure contractor. That's on them. And you might have to take that up with them.
Sure.
I have concerns. I disagree with your application when it comes to where the house is located. It meets the setbacks, the front, sides, everything. The house is where it needs to be to meet all the property development regs. And I think this has been self-created. You chose to put in a pool, and you met the code, and you needed to, and I'm concerned that the criteria haven't been met. And, you know, so we'll see.
Leslie, any comment?
None.
No comment. Okay, I have no comment at this point. Lance, I'm opening it up for public comment. Do we have any comment cards?
Yeah, we have a few comment cards. I'm not gonna read last names, I don't wanna butcher anyone's last name. So I'll start with, Mr. William.
Who?
William, Mr. William? Yes. Come to the podium if you
Oh,
don't mind.
sure.
to speak. Oh, okay.
We're calling Mr. Williams.
You all have 3 minutes to speak. by the
Thank
way.
you. Thank you for your time. My-
Mr. Williams, please give us your full name and your address for the record, please.
William Von Meeting, 313 Country Club Drive. My objection to the variance is really on the closeness of the structure to the fence. It cannot be helped, you all understand that. And, but all of the properties along the line to my understanding, if you look back there, they all have to adhere to the same code that was put in there. Otherwise, you're coming up with a structure that's just, you can't ignore it, you know. And I feel the board's responsibility is to really consider the closeness and the proximity of the structure you're going to wind up with, that's all. Going over this because every home along that line on that section of, Country Club Drive would be similarly affected. You don't know what other variances would be presented, and for the similar or a different reason. And I'm certainly aware of the fact that there have been code changes, but under the existing conditions, I would oppose the variance. And I thank you all for listening, and I appreciate the privilege of your time.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Lance?
Miss Valerie?
Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, good evening. My name is Valerie Mermet. I'm at 309 Country Club Drive in Tequesta. I'm Nancy's next door neighbor.
Could you speak louder, please?
I'm sorry. Valerie Mermet,
Thank
309 Country Club Drive in Tequesta. Just need to know that I'm opposed to variance, and I think the zoning code is there for a reason. That's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Miss Nancy?
I am Nancy Stahl-Smith. I am probably the most affected one because I live at 313 Country Club Drive, which is immediately behind Mr. Spiegelman's property. Like in the last variance, it was a half of a foot, but this is 4 feet. 4 feet doesn't sound like a lot, but when you look at pictures, and I do have a picture, I don't know if I'm allowed to show it, it really encroaches upon my property by being so close to the fence. It's like almost like a zero lot line when you look out from our patio onto that property. I am afraid for my property value if I ever go to sell the house, because then it almost feels like you're on a zero lot line. So I am opposed to it just on general principles. I don't see it as a hardship. He chose to put the pool in a very narrow space to begin with. And like was said, the contractor should have known that if there was any possibility of a screen enclosure, that should have been disclosed as they applied for the property zoning to get the pool in. So I just oppose on general principles that it's way too close to my property. It does make it look like a zero lot line as I look out from my patio, which we enjoy a lot. And I just think a 10-foot easement is there for a reason, for privacy, safety, and the valuation of my home. And I thank you.
Ma'am, are these your photos that you're submitting?
Yes, that as I look out from my patio, this is my view. I've lived in that home 35 years. And as you can see through the fence, that pool is put on a very narrow spot to begin with. So if you have an enclosure, it's going to look like almost like it's right against my fence. I'm unhappy about it, and I do oppose it.
Did the board get a chance to look at the photos?
Mhm.
And if the applicant needs a chance to look at the photos too and
Surely.
comment.
Absolutely.
Mr. Spielman?
No, to look at the photo?
Thank you.
We will enter those into the record.
Yes.
As part of the
Is
proceeding.
that okay? Well, you don't have too much of a choice, so. Sorry, Nancy.
It's fine. Thank you.
You gave them
And-
to us.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And these are all my neighbors.
Okay. Lance?
Mayor Abbey.
Good evening. My name is Abby Brennan. I live at 523 North Dover Road. And this is one of the times I'm really glad I'm not sitting up there. because this is a tough thing. Variances are tough. They absolutely do set precedents, as you know, and we have to all be very, very careful that we look at these individually. Of course, the gentleman that was here before talked about they were almost replacing what they had there. That's not the case here. And the people that do live behind it, for the most part, are concerned about how close it is to their property. When you buy a property, you know that you have a 10-foot setback for the most part. And you look at that from both sides of the fence, that they are going to have a 10-foot setback as well. So that's a little bit concerning in terms of what you're seeing in terms of coming in for variances. Now, the fact that the home is moved back from the street is not something that is new, and it is something that when the person does buy it, that you should be knowing where your house is, where the setback is, and take a look at all of that. Unfortunately, as Mr. Hackett pointed out, the contractor, shame on him or her, but that honestly is, I'm not understanding how that could possibly be. Everybody knows that we're not Palm Beach County, we're not Jupiter, we're not Palm Beach Gardens. We are the Village of DeQuesta, and we have some strong codes, and it's the law. That's what we're looking at here. Thank you.
Thank you. Lance?
I don't have any more for this.
Okay, do you have any comments online?
No.
And no more comment cards? No. There's no more, anyone else who in the audience wishes to address the board? Okay, ma'am, just come state your name and your address, please.
My name is Cheryl Hires. I'm at 326 Country Club Drive, so I am at that last piece away from the property. My main concern is that a variance that goes through for that amount of space is a lot of space, number one. Two, once one variance goes through, the other three pools in the neighborhood might also come to request, and I think that's a big issue, because what you do for one is similar to what you do for another if the issues are similar. So that's all I'm saying. I would like to see the variance that the village has in place upheld. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Nielsen?
Oh, she wants to.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just, no, you're fine. Please come to the podium, state your name and address for the
I'm
record.
Helene Bell, and I live at 323 Country Club Drive. So I stopped by to just see what this was all about, because I know Nancy. I said, what is this all about? So I stood there, and yes, I agree. It would seem very too close. I went and measured my pool, because I used to have a screened pool, but after those few hurricanes, I didn't re-screen it anymore. But it's 13 and a half feet from my pool to my property line in the back, and I think we should keep our restrictions.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Nielsen?
Madam Chair, the notice of hearing was advertised in the Palm Beach Post on December 6, 2021. The legal notice was mailed to property owners within a 300-foot radius of the subject property. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm trying to find.
Madam
Matt?
Chair, if we can allow, if the applicant wishes to address any of the public comment that was made, do you wish to come up and address any of the public comment?
Comments?
The variance we were seeking was a 4-foot variance. We would still have between the property line and where the enclosure is, we were still going to have 6 feet. So it wasn't a 4-foot, that's not what we're looking. We're looking for, it was going to be 6 feet from the property line. So I heard that mentioned. I don't, not that it makes a difference or not, but there's a difference in terms of what was being projected. So.
Chair, may I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
And I might have missed this, Neil, so, and I apologize. How tall is the structure going to be?
Give me 1 second to address that. I'll give
He's
you an
on
answer.
the,
I might
I have a drawing.
how
of it.
tall it's gonna be?
Yeah,
I'm just.
it's
someone
here,
answer.
12 feet.
Yeah.
The height of it's 12 feet.
Yeah,
12 feet.
12 feet is showing on the drawing.
Okay, thank you.
It's a mansard style, it's just gonna be like probably slightly above the existing rear flat roof.
No, it's this one.
Yep, I understand. I was just asking quickly, and.
12 feet 9 inches.
Got it. How high is your fence line now?
6 feet.
It's a 6-foot wood fence. Okay, thank you.
It's not his fence, that's not your fence, that's Nancy's fence?
It's
I
our,
just meant the fence.
it's our fence.
This is your fence?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
But it's roughly 6 foot above that
Okay.
fence.
Anyone else have a comment?
I guess maybe my comment is just to be transparent. My concern is with criteria two, that it's not a condition that you caused.
Anyone else?
Regrettably, through the cool contractor.
Well, separate of that, the condition I caused it because I put a pool there.
Yes, and your pool contractor didn't raise the issue at the time. I mean, I similarly see that none of your neighbors have fence, or have screen enclosures around their pools, or all but one do not have screen enclosures on their pools.
With that, I am opening it up to the board for a vote, for a motion.
I make a motion to deny variance 6-21.
May I?
Oh,
Sorry.
on the grounds of, it's.
Yes. Go ahead, on what grounds?
On the grounds that it's, could have been avoided.
I need you to specifically
there it
state
is.
the criteria.
Number 2, that the circumstances do result from the actions of the applicant. And there is no special conditions peculiar to the land, it's the way all the homes in the neighborhood were built.
Just to clarify, so criteria 2, any others, or just
One.
in one?
and two,
Okay.
Yes.
So you're stating it's the special condition and circumstances exist, and for the special,
That I don't-
A and B?
I don't believe there are special circumstances.
Okay.
And that the,
So it's just number B, the special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant.
I do feel they do result.
Okay.
Because he did put in the pool.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Lance, please do a roll call.
James Hackett,
Yes.
Elizabeth Shower,
No?
Sorry,
I'm
we,
guessing the motion.
okay, yes, as in you agree with the denial.
Oh,
Well, that was the motion.
Right, and just clarifying,
Yes.
so he agrees to deny it.
yeah.
I agree in the motion. Yeah, I'm agreeing to the motion, yes.
I'm sorry.
So do you agree to deny or?
I agreed to deny.
Okay. And Leslie Dasher
Yes.
and Sherry Ambrose.
I agree.
So 4-0 denial. Right?
Sorry, Mr.
Sorry.
Spielman. Okay. With that, we're up to staff comments.
No comments.
Public comments. This is the first time we've had a lot of public here.
We have public comment.
Oh, good.
Ms. Annette, am I saying that right?
Please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Annette Kravick, and I live at 250 Beach Road. The reason I'm here today is because in the last probably 6 to 8 weeks, we have had activity on Jupiter Island like never before. We found out that there were 2 buildings, condo buildings that were purchased to be torn down and other units put up. Now our building, the developers are coming and trying to get us to sell our building. There's a lot of confusion on the island right now. I didn't know if it might be possible for the zoning and planning committee to have a time when maybe we could have some people come so you could explain to us what is happening on the south end of Jupiter Island?
Okay.
You know, we really do not know. All we know is that we are losing our homes.
I have spoken in quite length with Nielsa in regard to this. I know a lot of the people, and I know that there are developers looking at a lot of different property also on US 1. I know there's a charrette that's coming up, but is that addressing, is it just US 1 or are they addressing Beach Road?
I need to find out if it will be addressing also Beach Road. I know for a fact that we'll be focusing on US 1, that's the main focus. I need to find out more, the details. Treasure Coast is conducting the charrette, so I will need to reach out to the village manager, Mr. Allen, and also Treasure Coast to find out if the charrette will include or not Beach Road.
I know that I had gotten several phone calls from people from the island that know that I've been on the board for many years. There was an article in the Palm Beach Post, was it last week? In regard to what Jupiter is planning on doing, and they were like, okay, well, what about Tequesta? And I said, just sit tight, because, you know, we're going to find out. So I know that there's a lot of bustle going on Beach Road, and a lot of people are upset that these developers are coming in and paying big bucks for your homes.
And we just had a meeting this morning, and we're told that we had to be out of our homes probably by July. So again, there's a lot of confusion. I think there's rumors going around, and we're just not sure what to do. And so we're hoping, you know, that maybe you could give us some guidance as to what you, am I correct in assuming that you are responsible for what goes into, or what is developed on the town of Tequesta portion of Jupiter Island?
Mm-hmm. What I would highly suggest to you,
okay,
and your neighbors, it's called The Power of the Voice of the People, is for all of you to get together and to go to a village council meeting and fill out comment cards and address the council on, they are your elected officials and they are to represent you.
Okay.
And tell them of your main concerns and that you are not happy with what's going on the island. And I know that several of them know what is going on the island.
Okay, so the village council is
Yes.
where we are addressing.
You elect them, so that's who you should go see.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're fine, ma'am. I'm not on the village council anymore, so you can go to them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? Is there anyone else, Lance? Anybody online?
Nope, that's it.
Any of the board have any comments? Well, may I have, Matt?
Yeah, nothing from me.
Okay. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn?
May I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye? Anybody opposed? Okay, we're done. Thank you.
Merry
And-
Christmas.
And good luck. Lance graduates tomorrow at 9 o'clock.
Yes. Lance graduates.